Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing for Thursday, the 15th of February. It's the morning after the night before, after Rangers' 3-1 win over Ross County at Ibrox last night, that sees Rangers go joint top of the division alongside Celtic with the same goal difference, but unfortunately couldn't get that elusive fourth goal that would have seen Rangers move clear at the top. It was a great start from Rangers. Cyril Dessers netting after just 5 minutes. Simon Murray equalising against it on the play, it's fair to say. Rangers getting their noses back in front. A Dessers header on the stroke of half-time. And despite a glut of opportunities and a goalkeeper in inspired form, Rangers couldn't find another goal until late on. John Souttar with a header from a corner to seal a 3-1 victory. Joshua was there for us. If you've watched it, if you stayed up late last night, folks, then hats off to you. We discussed the match, sort of match reaction last night. We'll delve into it in more detail this morning. Before we do that, just a quick word for the MPH Group, our podcast sponsors. If you're looking for home improvements or even a new boiler, these are the guys to call. Joshua, did you get much sleep last night?
No, not much. I'm just trying to rapidly tweet out some more stuff about the game. It was, I've not watched it back totally yet, but we've got a piece out which is in the description. Derek will put it in the comments as well, which kind of touches upon everything we're going to talk about, which is the fact that the data says it was a bit of an exceptional game. Yes, there's still question marks about Rangers finishing their highest expected goals tally since the only time they've managed a higher expected goals tally in the last season, Derek, was the 5-1 win away at Dundee in one of Clement's first games. The last time they hit an XG total higher than that at home was Giovanni Van Bronckhorst's one of his final games, which was a 4-1 win over Aberdeen. So we can delve into a bit about what that actually means. Was it poor goalkeeping? Was it poor finishing? Hopefully, so the XG skeptics don't get annoyed at me saying the word too much. But I think it was a bit of an exceptional game, Derek, last night. Rangers were very good up to a point. I think they still could have been far more ruthless and scored more goals. But specifically, if we look at the goalkeeper's performance, which we're going to do, then it throws up some really interesting numbers as to why Rangers had 23 shots on goal. Ultimately, we're only able to get 3 goals. Nothing's won or lost last night. If this was a game on the final day of the season, then I think you come on and you say, well, that's what cost Rangers their lack of finishing. But I think it's also important to look at the fact that they've won their 2 games in hand. They're joint top, and the momentum very much feels with them, even if they weren't able to get that extra goal last night.
Yeah, I said last night it was almost Braga-like in the amount of opportunities Rangers had, and the XG is 4.5. 4.5, am I right, Joshua? It was last night.
I'll tell you right now because I'll get it up. It was 4. You can't see it because of the Navian sign at the top.
I'll get that off. There we go.
4.31. There you go. So we'll get into all the numbers and hopefully provide a bit more context as to actually what happened, because it did feel, as we kind of touched upon briefly last night, Derek, it did feel like a freak game, and I think the numbers kind of back up that theory.
Yeah, Blue Ninja says, I told my Aussie mate we had 43 shots. He asked if we were playing 9 holes of golf. It was a strange game, but Rangers failing in that final third to get the better of an inspired goalkeeper who had an absolute superb game. It is, I think, seen a stat, and I think BBC said last night, 19 saves is the best, is the most saves a goalkeeper has made in the Premiership, which is quite incredible. Speaking afterwards, the manager did say he couldn't fault his players. They did everything they could. It's all about centimetres with regards to those opportunities. He says, I think our finishing was also not that bad if you have 23 shots on goal, but it's about centimetres. We can do better in that way. We can raise our level in that way to be more precise, but those are the next steps to take. I think the team have taken a lot of steps already. There's extra focus. It's been there in the last weeks and months because it's an important part of football, but you cannot ask much more of the players. A lot of comments coming in saying Rangers are just lacking a clinical edge in front of goal, Joshua. We discussed, of course, at length prior to the transfer window closing whether they need a number 9. Dessers got 2 goals last night, could have had more.
Yeah.
it was a proper Dessers performance. Some good moments, some really poor moments from him. I thought Fabio Silva looked pretty sharp again when he came on last night. Ditto Oscar Cortez and Mohamed Diamandi. But why did Rangers not score more last night?
Okay, let's start with Rangers shots on target. So I'm going to pull that graphic back up, Derek, if you want to take that away at the top of the screen. So here we are. Rangers have 43 shots. I think 24 of them were from 18 yards or more, Derek. So, a shot obviously doesn't equate to a great chance, and that's why expected goals can be quite helpful. But on that basic number of 4.31, you'd expect Rangers to score more, to at least match their 4 goals and maybe go a little bit higher. So let's start with Cyril there. So actually, we'll start with shots from range. A lot of shots from range. A lot of them hit the goalkeeper. We saw against Aberdeen last week that at times a shot from range maybe isn't going to score directly. It can create for another player. But outside of that, inside the penalty box, as you can see, and you can see by the key at the bottom, that the kind of darker the shape, the better the chance value. Normally, the closer to goal, the better. The main chances fell to 2 players, Cyril Dessers and Oscar Cortez. James Tavernier and Tom Lawrence both had 6 shots apiece, but their chance value wasn't quite as high. Fabio Silva had a late kind of one-on-one where he kind of lashed at the ball. Maybe should have tried to put it across the goalkeeper. Dessers' game, looking back at the numbers, you're right to say it rolled all into one, Derek. I'm just going to try and read out here. Obviously, I can't move it live on the screen, but I'll try and show you exactly what I mean by that. So Dessers scores from his first goal, which was that excellent finish, and that's a 0.11 expected goals chance. Now, if anyone needs an explainer, all expected goals is doing is it's showing what is the probability of a chance resulting in a goal based on the location, based on a huge back catalogue of data, based on effectively how close it is to goal, the angle. So it was a 0.11 expected goals chance for that first one. He lifts on over the goalkeeper. Brilliant finish, not dissimilar from that chance against Aberdeen that we discussed. And then he scores a second one, Derek, from a 0.10 expected goals. That header kind of towards the back post, back across the goalkeeper. They were the 2 most difficult chances that he had in that half, bar 1 or 2. So he has the one where he takes the ball down really well, cuts back on his man and hits the post, and that's a 0.43 expected chance. He has the one where he maybe should square it to Rabbi Matondo. It comes back and it's cleared off the line after a cross. That's a 0.46 expected chance. He had the one at the back post where Todd Cantwell kind of clipped it up towards the end of the half, and that was a 0.49 expected goals chance. But he still scored 2 goals from 2 expected goals. So I think it is important to bring some bring a bit of the devil's advocate to this conversation that, yes, Rangers needed that goal to go top of the table last night. Yes, they should have scored more. But Dessers, I think, has 10 goals from 10.6 expected goals so far in the league. So we can maybe see that he's not going to massively overperform his numbers, but he does keep going, and he is probably going to score 15 or more league goals between now and the end of the season. But as we'll get on to when we discuss the Ross County goalkeeper, while at points it was, Dessers was maybe guilty of missing a couple of good opportunities, you also met George Wickens having one of the best games you'll probably ever have in the Ross County goals to keep the score down.
Yeah, listen, there's a comment came in saying a lot of the shots were at the goalkeeper. That ties in with Clement's response, saying it's centimetres. I think better finishing, and Rangers would have racked up a cricket score last night. There's no doubt about it. Lots of points being made. This is an interesting one. Just taking stock. Denzel says, let's be honest, nobody could have predicted this at the beginning of the season. Let's lap it up. Yeah, Rangers right back in the title race, of course. And I think every game from now on, not only will be looking at taking all 3 points, which is imperative, but also with an eye on the goal difference as well. Celtic just on top because they have scored more goals. Rangers conceded a goal last night, Joshua, and there's a few comments coming in just on the nature of said goal that was lost. Mackie with a point. Morning, guys. Usual mistakes from Goulton and Suter at the goal. You'd think we'd have sorted it by now. As far as Ross County is concerned, if you're Don Cowie, you're really happy with that goal that they scored. Great finish from Simon Murray. He knows his way to goal. But from a Rangers point of view, Joshua, it was a pretty cheap goal, and at that point, you're thinking Ross County hadn't been in the game, and you've just given them a gift pretty much to get a foothold in it. Goldson and Suter, though, culpable, both of them?
Yeah, well, I agree with Denzel's point, first and foremost, that it is important to look at the fact that if you'd offered people, okay, by what date is it there? The 15th of February, Rangers will be joint top, and the primary complaint on the morning briefing will be that they scored 3 instead of 4. I think people would have taken that. So I think context is important. Very similar goal to the Aberdeen one, if you look at how it comes about, which is a guy in midfield kicking the ball over his head blindly. If you look at how the actual initial chance comes about. Ross County at times went man for man with Rangers centre-backs, with Brophy and Simon Murray, and that made it quite an interesting game because Rangers normally always had an extra midfield runner, an extra man in the midfield. Often it was James Tavernier, at times Tom Lawrence, who I thought was brilliant for large parts. At times it was Todd Cantwell, and I think that helped them to create chances, but because, as obviously the primary nature of our discussion, Rangers didn't really fully exploit the chances that they had, that left the game slightly vulnerable. And then in the one moment that Ross County had to kind of take advantage of the numbers that they were committing to the top end of the park, going quite direct into the last line, they were able to exploit. Suter kind of seems to get caught under the ball, and Goldson's going over to his man and allows a cross to get in. Just a bad goal to concede all around. So, yeah, not that dissimilar, I thought, from the Aberdeen game. And that probably is a concern because Rangers' defensive record has been so good. Equally, you are going to concede goals at points, Derek, but you can understand if you look at that Aberdeen and the Ross County game, the Rangers came back and scored their second goal a lot quicker this time round. The crowd was starting to get slightly anxious, shall we say, with the game at 1-1, having witnessed all the missed opportunities beforehand. But I'm sure that's something Clement will be really focusing on. John Suter was speaking in his press conference about the importance of effectively when Rangers have possession, their defensive position, their rest defence, how they set up to not concede transitions. And Connor Goldston spoke about that, I think, after the Ayr game at the weekend as well. They didn't lose the ball in a great position. But again, it just struck me that it's such a similar situation to the Aberdeen goal. That time it was Graham Shinney kicking the ball over his head and a bit of a blind pass. Maybe he's looked over his shoulder beforehand, and I'm not giving the passers credit, but it did seem more like a let's see where this can go. You can't concede goals of that nature, and especially in these type of home games at Ibrox. So I'm sure it's something they'll want to eradicate going into the next one, because definitely was a poor goal to concede, very similar to one that stalled the momentum somewhat in that game against Aberdeen the midweek before.
Yeah, get to some of the points are quite interesting that are coming in. Some are saying that I mean, the corners, not many supporters are happy with the corners, the quality of them, Joshua. And I know the Suter goal came from there, and Tavernier with 3 assists, incidentally, to rack up. But the corners, it's something I've harped on about for a while. I think that there's not enough. They don't look like they work on it enough on the training ground for me. I know that balls are whipped in, outswingers are. They'll start varying up. They've seen a few in-swingers as well. I would just like to see more invention with the set pieces and especially the corners. What's your view on that?
Yeah, totally agree. We actually did a piece maybe last week on the website, and I was amazed at the stat. But at that time, Rangers' expected goals from corners was the exact same as last season, and I think their goals, and this is last week, so I don't know. It's obviously not that up to date. Last year, they were averaging 0.51 goals from 0.44 expected goals per corners. I'm saying a lot of XGs. I know. Basically, they were overperforming a little bit, and now they were underperforming quite a lot. They scored a few direct free kicks last season. I think they've only got 1 in the league this season from James Tavernier so far. But I agree with you that I think the eye test can tell you a lot about corners, Derek. And again, if you want to then be picky and think, okay, goal difference will matter, because it looks like it will with 13 games to go. There's a reason that so many Premier League clubs employ set piece specialists. I was listening to Xavi Alonso after Bayer Leverkusen came back to win 3-2 against RB Leipzig to keep their run going a few weeks ago. Where did their 2 goals come from towards the end of the game? Set pieces. And Jonathan Tah, one of their centre-backs, afterwards said we spend up to 2 hours a week in training on them. It'll be interesting, maybe something we should get Philippe Clement's thoughts on at a press conference soon. But it's definitely not an area where Rangers, regardless of the chances they've created, it's not an area where they've scored enough goals from. And again, on that topic of the eye test, ideally, I think what you want with a corner, Derek, is okay, you're not going to score statistically from every corner, every 1 and 2, nowhere like it. But you want to pose a threat from every corner. And I think Rangers' lack of variation at the moment, it feels a little bit like it did under Gio. And I think it was the game against St Johnstone away where Rangers they lost 2-1 shortly before he was dismissed. I think they had 18 to 20 corners on that day as well. I think it was 20 last night. Rangers might turn around and say, well, on the basis of play, you probably score one every 15 to 20 corners. And they did that last night. And you'd have to say fair enough. However, I agree with you. I think on the eye test, I think anyone in the stadium last night would think that there's more invention, more variation to be had there. Maybe it's because the schedule's so busy at the moment, there's not that much time to work on set pieces. And that probably is a bit of a reality. We forget that when there's absolutely no free midweeks, that training time is so limited, training time with all the squad is so limited, with many going through obviously recovery sessions on the day like today. But I agree with you on the principle of being at that game last night. I did not feel like when Rangers were getting a corner, they were going to score. And I think that can tell you a lot about how threatening a team actually look when they get a dead ball situation.
Yeah, CGM55 says, how inventive can you be with the corner in or out swingers? Don't hit the first man or balloon it out for a throw in.
Well, I think you can. I think you can
do short corners. There's little training ground techniques. I watch a lot of football. Lots of teams work on corners and they reap the rewards as well. That's all I'm saying. I think I would like to see a bit of variation with regards to them.
And it's not just short, long, or in swingers. You're talking about movement in the box.
Yes.
You only have to watch one match of the day to see 100 different routines. It's not it's not as if there's only 3 options. You see that different teams will try. Look at, to cite a recent example, if you look at I don't know how many people watched the Man United against Aston Villa game recently, and Man United are another team who have not been famed for their attacking corners, but they were exploiting Aston Villa's zonal marking system using Harry Maguire at the edge on, I think it was Kamara. That's where the goal comes from in the first half. Okay, that's just an outswinger, but it's a specific outswinger tailored to that team's weaknesses and Man United's strengths on that specific occasion. So, probably, Derek, the time that they have on the training ground comes into that at the moment. Maybe they've been a little bit unlucky based on the expected goals as we looked at a couple of weeks ago. But I agree with you. I think there is scope to be more inventive and just carry more of a threat, because that could be so important. As I'm talking about that Bayer Leverkusen game, those 2 goals, keeping them top of the table, getting an important win away from home. Yep. You cannot underestimate how vital set pieces can be. And that's the reason why, most clubs in the Premier League now have a specialist in that area.
Exactly. Graham Boyle says, we missed Joe Rebo for the front post flip-ons. We absolutely do. Aldo with a point. Who was the set-piece guy we had under Gerrard? Can we get him back? Tom Culshaw is the name you're looking for. I think he's over in Saudi, is he, with Gerrard? I'm not not totally sure, but
he is, I think. And to be fair, I think under Michael Beale for a time, the attacking set pieces took a real upturn as well, Derek. And maybe, Clement was speaking about goals like a ketchup bottle or whatever that analogy is last night. Maybe that's going to happen with set pieces as well. Who knows? But again, if as we'll come on to talk about, we probably wouldn't be having the same nature of this conversation if the Ross County goalkeeper George Wickens doesn't have the game of his life, which absolutely felt like last night.
Yeah. The point that came in here, just deviating slightly, Alan Wright says, Derek, when was the last time Rangers got a penalty in the Premiership? The 20th of December against St Johnstone at home. And for the conspiracy theorists out there, Celtic have had 12 penalties in the Premiership. Rangers have had 9. So there you go. I've missed those 3 words, Joshua. Hopefully we can hear those on Sunday lunchtime. It has been a wee while since Rangers were last awarded a penalty. The point here, Bluebells are blue, quite right. I personally enjoyed watching the team last night. It was domination, and their appetite to attack is great to see. Yeah, I don't think you can fault much of that Rangers performance, apart from, obviously, we touched on the goal that was lost was a relatively poor one, and some of the finishing at times could have been better. But the performance itself, Joshua, that will give Rangers fans a lot of confidence heading up to Perth on Sunday and beyond. This is a team that are very much are gelling. The new players are integrating into the side. I really enjoyed watching Oscar Cortez when he came on last night. Again, I thought he was brilliant. I was surprised, incidentally, he never started the game, but I can understand it with them just sort of integrating into that squad. But there is a lot to like about this Rangers team at this moment in time.
Yeah, there isn't. And the performance apart, if you take out that one defensive moment, the performance was brilliant. I mean, Rangers were relentless in their attacks, wave after wave, as Clement said. And I guess this is the difficulty, Derek, and why Clement will, as he reaffirmed in the press conference last night, he said, yeah, of course there's going to be stuff to improve, but look how far we've come. Look how far we've come with the relationship with the fans. There's always going to be steps to improve, but you're talking about, okay, if one more goal goes in, and as I'll show in the moment, the Ross County goalkeeper had a lot to do with that. Does the narrative become completely different? And I guess that's a difficult tension that a football manager has, is trying to trust his team in the right moments and think, do you know what, it's going to come, because it's not as if chances are not being created. And although, yes, they should have been taken last night, what was the circumstance around that, as we were obviously trying to spend half an hour trying to dissect. But the first 20 minutes in particular, Rangers started so well, felt like they were going to go out of sight. And overall, the important thing is they've won these games in hand. Again, if you came back after the winter break and you said Rangers will win away at Easter Road, they'll kind of grind one out away at St Mirren as well on a difficult pitch. They'll be dominant at home, and you're one goal away from it being, the completely perfect start, I guess, back after the winter break. But if we look here at George Wicken's save map, Derek, now I'll explain this as well. You don't really need to see too much of this. This is all the 19 saves he made. There's a statistic we use, and we use a data provider called StatsBomb, which is the most reliable. That's why we don't get it live, we get it the day after. Goal saved above average is, in effect, it's looking at how much is a goalkeeper actually worth based on the shots that they face, their positioning, all that I've explained, but this time in relation to post-shot expected goals. All you need to really think in relation to this stat is how much was the goalkeeper worth on average? How many goals did he save or concede his team overall? And last night alone, Wickens his goal saved above average was 2. So he quite literally was the difference between that game being 5-1 and 3-1 according to the data, Derek. So yes, Rangers had more opportunities. Yes, I agree that there will be questions about, do they have the players in the big games, and do they have the goals to power them to a title until either of those happen? Because it's not happened in a while. So I think that's absolutely only natural. But George Wickens had one of the games of his short career so far, and I'm sure one of the best games he will have over a long career, being only 22 last night. And I think that the data definitely backs that up. So yeah, hopefully all those numbers give a little bit of context. Of course, I'm not saying that Rangers could not have finished them, that their opportunities better, especially a couple of those Dessers moments. Matondo had a couple of really good opportunities in the first half, didn't he, as well? Yes, they could be doing better from corners, but you're also talking about, if a goalkeeper has an average performance, it's 5, or average performance to the expected level, it's 5-1, and the tone of the conversation is very different today.
Yeah. There was a point that came in. It was a really interesting one on Dessers we touched on. Risey says that Dessers should have had 6. What is the standard he's been held to? With some folk, listen, he had a lot of opportunities last night, but he still, as we touched on last night, Joshua, he still keeps coming back for more. And he got his 2 goals last night. Could have had a hat trick, but listen, I think on Sunday Fabio Silva will get the nod. I think it's just about rotating those 2. From here on in, would you be? I know he got 2 goals, and it would be hard. It's hard with Dessers, isn't it? Because there's certain aspects of his game that you can't deny. I mean, he's getting the numbers, but at times it looks like he's never seen a football in his life before. But I think Fabio Silva might get the nod on Sunday. Yeah,
but again, should he have had 6? Okay, he could have. He also did score 2 goals in the Rangers win, so it's not all bad, is it? And I think especially that first goal, the thing that stood out to me was that you see the pace. I'm not saying he's fast, but the difference in is running, let's say, behind the line compared to when he first came in is. I mean, for the first 3 months of the season, Derek, we probably spoke about Dessers being offside every single show. And whereas now you look at the way he curved his run for that first goal, you look at that goal away to St Mirren as well. You look at the goal where he hits the post with that opportunity and does everything right. He beats the goalkeeper for the next one and sees it cleared off the line. Okay, in a couple of moments, I think he could have played it back to Rabbi Matondo. He misses that chance where it's dinked up towards the back post. But what has allowed him to recover and become a player that fans would sing about after jeering is that he just keeps going. And again, to reaffirm a point we said last night, he said after, I think it was the Hibs game, that you either embrace the pressure or die at a club like Rangers. And I think a lot of people in this situation, after you've had that first half, and I asked them about it after the game, a lot of people would maybe think, right, okay, I've seen my fair share of football in this first half. Let's just get into the dressing room and recalibrate. But he keeps going, keeps taking opportunities. I think that link up with James Tavernier again is something he spoke about after is really growing, and again manages to ironically finish two of the more difficult chances in that first half. So a player that will continue to split opinion. He was splitting opinion in the Rangers review group chat last night alone, Derek. But expect Silva to probably come back in and keep things fresh. And hopefully Dessers, if he can continue to score two goals a game but miss opportunities, Rangers will be in a good place. I don't think he'll do that. But again, since Clement has come into the club, I've not got his up-to-date numbers off the top of my head, but they've been pretty good. So you just hope that continues between now and then.
Yeah, Drew Thompson with the point. Was that Dessers' first brace? I can't remember the last. Was that his first couple of goals he scored in one game, which is well done, Cyril. Keep that up, buddy. Nevitz with the point. Does anyone know what Cyril Dessers' shots to goal ratio is? Something I'm sure we can delve into and find out. But there's no doubt about it. He has improved hugely since the new manager has been appointed. Like many others, we've seen an upturn in performances. There's a point as well that I thought it was interesting. We touched on it last night. In fact, but just to wrap up on Dessers, you did ask the manager about him last night, Joshua, and he said, I think he had a positive night, but I cannot speak about one player that wasn't a positive night. For me, it's really difficult to pick out individuals after the game because I've seen a lot of quality on the pitch today. I think Jack, he means Butland, is the only one who could not score today. All the rest created chances, so that's the most important thing. I said it at the beginning, a striker for me is much more than just scoring goals. They also need to do a lot of other things for the team because the team then becomes better, and Cyril is doing those things and Fabio is doing those things. The goals will follow because he will come into the positions, but all the rest of the team also. I don't care if it's a striker who scored the goal or the midfielder or the defender, which I thought was quite interesting. And the point, we discussed it last night, and the manager addressed it in his post-match press conference, Borna Bear, saying the fans' anxiety passes onto the pitch. It's got to stop. He did say that. I'll just rhyme off what he said again. If you didn't watch the match reaction last night, folks, he says... he was asked whether the fans need to show a bit more patience in the stands. He says, that's true, but I discussed it with the team before the game. That's normal. That's been a fan. Maybe we need to talk about that more with the fans. It doesn't help, but our players need to be strong to just remain focused on ourselves and not become anxious. I didn't have the feeling on the pitch that it happened today, but it's a danger indeed. If you start to live the life of fans on the field, then you'll not reach your goals. So we need to step out of that. I'm really proud of the way the players did that today because they never became nervous. They only showed hunger and ambition for more and more. I said this last night, Josh, the fans will have their part to play between now and the end of the season. They will be huge. Starting off at the weekend, of course, up at McDermott Park. But the anxiety, it does seep onto the pitch. I've seen a lot of people saying it last night. It doesn't necessarily help the players. I can understand the fans' frustration, desperately wanting that fourth goal to go clear at the top. It wasn't to be, but it's all about sort of, the manager said it before, the synergy between the fans and the players. I mean, the relationship's back, which is fantastic to see, but the players needed the fans backing from now here on until the end of the season if Rangers want to lift that Premiership title come May.
Yeah, but again, having sat at many football games as a fan myself, it's not the place where you normally think all that rationally about should that goal have gone in or should it not have. It's part of, I guess, being so invested in something that you cannot control. I think it was a bit nervy at points last night, Derek, but that's not to say that the crowd weren't working with the team. I think justifiably, if you've watched that first half and Rangers concede an equaliser and then there's a few nervy moments, then every time Ross County get over the halfway line naturally, because of it's always the context, because of the last few years, because success has not been the norm, and something's always been around the corner. Watching Rangers at Ibrox, it's only natural that feeds into it. So I agree, but I think what Clement has is he has that type of relationship with the fans now where he has got authority in what he says. That synergy, as you say, really is back. There was just that big focus on getting those extra goals last night, which obviously Rangers weren't quite able to do. But great atmosphere in moments, tense atmosphere in others, big celebrations when Suter got that third goal. And I think it's going to be like that between now and the end of the season, Derek. I think it's going to be a roller coaster, and you hope that Clement, as he's kind of been able to do so far, is able to really harness Ibrox's energy in a domestic sense, and that the fans see what they want to continue to get behind the team.
Yeah, and big shout out as well to Michael, who says, watch the game from my hospital bed in Chennai where I'm recovering from pneumonia. Feel even better now. We are clearly on our way to 56. Well, hopefully rest and recover, buddy, and hopefully you're back on the mend before too long. But great to have you tuning in. Terry Monroe says that suitor go bag me £150. Super stuff. Hopefully it's spent on. Hopefully you go and spend it in the. On some Rangers or whatever you want to spend your £150. But well done, Soapy, with the goal that ensured that you got that payout. So fantastic. Just to give you a heads up, Joshua's piece is on the website looking at last night's finishing in closer detail. It's over on the Rangers Review site. The link is in the description below. So do go and check that out. Just a reminder, yesterday we recorded a video on Todd Cantwell and his upturn in form, how the number 10 role is evolving. Got good feedback on that, so it's something we're hoping to do at least on a weekly basis. I'd urge you to check out over on the YouTube channel, folks. Just on Cantwell last night, Josh, I thought he was good again.
Yeah, and Lawrence, we should probably mention that. There's so much to cover that we've probably forgotten. James Tavernier also has a hat-trick of assists. I thought Cantwell, I had a pretty good game overall again. Continues to look, as we discussed in greater detail in that video, Derek, more like himself in that number 10 role. Had some really nice moments on and off the ball. And I think Lawrence, again, I tweeted out one kind of gif in the lead up to the goal, just the way he sidesteps his man. I think it was a bit before the second goal. It's just that, I think, that bravery, the base of the pitch, which has helped. He's had two really good performances in these type of games at home the last couple of weeks in a slightly deeper role. Tom Lawrence, that's where I expect him to kind of play going forward. I just think it gives Rangers something that they've lacked for quite a while, which is natural creativity, someone who wants to play forward. And it's small details, but if Lawrence goes around in that situation, and people know what I'm talking about from watching the game, if he goes around to James Tavernier, the ball's behind him and Ross County can recover, by breaking that line, gives them the space to pick out the pass. These are, I think, the fine margins that are really important when you're trying to break a team down. So both of those good, as you say, went into great detail about Todd Cantwell's game. If people want us to cover these topics in more detail, then they'll tweet us or send a comment, or we'll hopefully see it somewhere, and we'll maybe put something out on YouTube at one point in the community section, and we'll endeavour to do it in a little bit more detail. I know some people absolutely hate the graphs, and some people absolutely love them. So if we put them in another place, people can go and search them out, and we had a real deep dive look into how Todd Cantwell's role has changed and maybe why that upturn has happened in 2024 so far.
Yeah, good stuff. Plenty on the website and the YouTube channel, folks, to keep you entertained. Tomorrow will be press conference day, incidentally, as we begin to look ahead to that trip to Perth on Sunday. Right, if we don't speak to you a little later on, then enjoy your Thursday. Bye for now.